Good morning, everyone. Going to give people a few moments to log on. So excited. Hi, Amanda. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm giving everyone a few moments to log on and then we'll jump right into the content. Hi, Marion. All right. Just give it a few more moments. Hope everyone out there is doing well. It's been a crazy weekend, but we're going to make this easy for everyone. All right. First I'm going to introduce myself. I have a bunch of new followers, thankfully. Thanks for joining me. My name is Jennifer Lawrence. I am a productivity expert and coach. I've specialized in working with entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their businesses quickly, but I have a background in administrative support, and so I also work with administrative professionals, which is incredibly rewarding, and I really love it. And so this training is basically for anyone who is now working from home, whether it is your long-term solution or you are one of the few, the proud, that have been designated to not come into an office building. I'm here to help you out. All right. Oh, hi, Amanda. I'm so glad you connected with Tiffany. She's really amazing. There's a lot to learn from her. So you're very welcome. I adore her. All right, let's get started. So I'm going to drop a bunch of tips in here, and I would love your live feedback. Please feel free to post questions, comments. If you have additional thoughts on tips, I always welcome. This is more of a collaborative learning, and I don't claim to know everything, so I would love to have any contributions you may have. So let's get started. So if you are now working from home, step number one is to set up a designated space. A lot of people may find this incredibly difficult depending on your living environment. I would say preferred is a space behind doors. So if you have a space that you can set up as an office, go for it. If you can't, let's get a little bit creative, because a lot of people will default to the kitchen table or the kitchen counter, and that's fine if that works for you. But if you have little ones home with you, if you have a spouse, if you have a very needy dog, trust me, I'm with you. You may want to find another space that may even create a door for you. I encourage people to maybe rethink their bedroom, and this takes a lot of boundary settings if you're going to do that. The second one that I would recommend is your patio space. I've actually done it in the past where I've set up a tray that has my laptop, my mouse, my chargers, my notebook, and I bring that out in the morning and I put it away, and then that way I can work outside. You can also convert some garage space if you have it, and that will give you a door, and it's springtime, so it's a great time to be working in that space. So tip number one definitely is to set up a designated workspace. Your couch is not a workspace. All right. The second tip I have for you is to establish and communicate office hours. You'll want to do this in two ways. One, communicate with your manager and your work team. It's really important that everyone knows when you're going to be available, and just because you're at home doesn't mean you're available 24/7. So set up some boundaries. If you've got kids and they're home with you all day, make sure that the people who work with you understand that. Or if you're in a situation like mine where my kids' school is still open, this is when I take them to school, this is when they come home. So those are the hours of which I'm available to work. Outside of that time, not available. Remember, and I cannot stress this enough, just because you're working at home does not mean you're always at work. The second way to establish and communicate hours is make sure that you're communicating that with your family. If you have family members who are home with you, you'll want to make sure that they understand when you actually need to be present with your work stuff. Another great thing is maintaining some form of routine. So if you are used to being at your desk at 8 o'clock in the morning and then you clock out because you have to go pick up your kids, or that's just when you leave every day. Try to maintain that sense of cadence at home. It can be really tempting to log on when you feel like it and log off and then check your email right before you go to bed. That's not okay. Try to maintain some sense of routine. The other part is that if you are in a situation where your spouse or significant other or roommates are home with you, discuss your schedule with them. So my husband and I, every night before we go to bed, I pull out my calendar, he pulls out his calendar, and we actually say, hey, I've got a call tomorrow at 10 a.m. or I'm really loaded up. I've got calls all morning. And he knows that that is do not disturb time. Any other time of the day, please feel free to pop in and tell me about something you read or saw or what have you. But during that time, please do not disturb me. And on the note of do not disturbs, you'll want to make sure that you have some sort of physical sign for the other people in your home that you're not able to be disrupted. And a lot of people use this just for phone calls, but I can tell you right now, it really comes in handy if you're deep on a project, if you are you're just listening to a webinar. And so what I actually do is my office has a door, but I have a sticky note that I put on the door that just says do not disturb. When I worked in an office environment, and this is something that you can transition to home, is I made this cute little red flag that went on my computer screen, and I would just flip it up because people can never tell with the earbuds if you're like on the call or if you're playing music or what have you. So having some sort of physical sign to communicate to your family to stop, do not disrupt me right now, come back to me later, is really important. So again, just recapping, top 2 tips: set up a designated workspace and establish and communicate office hours both with your team that you work with and your team at home. All right, welcome to everybody. Hi, Amber. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Amy. So happy to have you here. All right, the next step, and if you've ever seen any of my stuff, I push this and I push this and I push this, and I'm going to push it again. Schedule your to-dos. This is particularly important when you're working at home, for multiple reasons. The first one is it helps you plan your day. If you've never heard of it, so scheduling your to-dos, you're going to hear about it as like time blocking. A lot of people use a lot of different terms. Essentially what you're doing is you're just putting an appointment on your calendar for very specific tasks. Okay, so if I say I need to review an Excel spreadsheet, that's actually a task that goes on my calendar for the amount of time that I expect to be working on it. There's a lot of great residual benefits for this. I have tons of blog posts and content on my website about why you should be doing this. So I'm not going to deep dive on it in this call, but I'll probably do it later next week. Wink, wink. I'm terrible at winking. I'm super creepy about it too. So that being said, but definitely try to get into the habit of scheduling your to-dos. And there's a few benefits that are going to come specifically if you're new to working from home. So the first one is it helps you plan out your day. You know what to expect during the day. You know what you want to get done. You know what you have to get done. The other thing is, if your day gets derailed, which is super likely if you're new to working from home and your significant others are home with you, or you've got kids that are home with you because the school's shut down, and you never know what's going to happen in your day, right? You get distracted by things that are going on in the home. You know, your washing machine blows up. One kid pushes the other kid down the stairs because they thought they were going to be ninjas today. Whatever it may be, what allows you to pivot in a way that keeps you calm is knowing what you're missing out on or what you need to find time for somewhere else. And so this is why scheduling your to-dos is important, because say you get to noon and you're having lunch and one of your kids isn't feeling well, and now the rest of your day is spent trying to figure out what's wrong with them, how to take care of them, comforting them on the couch. You can look at your calendar and say, okay, well, this afternoon I was going to work on that project. It's not due until next week, so I can let that go. I'll move that time block to a different time. And oh yeah, I would need to have that call. I'm going to contact that person and just let them know what's going on. And it allows you to have this forethought into your future to renegotiate your time in a way that puts you in control, rather than getting to the end of your day and just saying, oh, I got nothing done today. And then your patience is super low with your family. You're upset about things that really shouldn't upset you. Like your child being sick is not within their control. Maybe get a little upset about the kids trying to be ninjas, but this allows you to be in the control seat. The other thing that's great about this is if you're new to working from home, it is really tempting to do chores around the house. I get it. I've been there. I'm still there today, because when you go to work, you get to leave the environment. And so those dishes that are in the sink, not only do you not think about them, they're not in your line of sight, you also can't do anything about them while you're at work. Also, that laundry that hasn't gotten done, and oh my gosh, that shelf is so dusty. And wow, it looks like we haven't vacuumed in a while. That all pops up while you're working from home. And trust me, you're probably gonna say, oh, she's crazy, I don't think about those things. Give it 2 days. I promise you. You're going to start noticing all the things you haven't been doing around your house. So that being said, anticipate that. Schedule it into your calendar. So what I actually do is every morning, I schedule 15 minutes at the start of my day to handle any chores that I feel like I need to get through. Yeah, Amber, I'm telling you, you're totally guilty of it, right? And so schedule that in. Just make time for it. Don't ignore it. Don't feel guilty. Don't think that if your kids are still in school, you're going to like squeeze it in when they get home, because that's not going to happen either. And I can give you all these parenting tips about getting your kids into doing the chores with you, but we're not going to walk down that road because kids are squirrels and it never ends up the way you want it to. So what I'm going to say is schedule it into your calendar, whether it's 15 minutes at the beginning of the day, 5-minute microbursts in between meetings and tasks, 15 minutes at the end of the day, and we're actually going to get to that. There's a great way to transition from home to personal. Whatever you've got to do, don't ignore it. You just need to make it part of your schedule. Because one of the things about scheduling your to-dos, the thing that actually will save you, is that it allows you to take that little thing in the back of your mind, that the don't forget to do this, which you inevitably always forget, like the don't forget to do this, the I need tos, the I want tos, and what have you. It puts it somewhere that is solid and that you don't forget it, so that it releases the brain space, it releases the worry, it releases the stress, and puts it somewhere in the future that is planned and designated for it to get done. It feels miraculous. Once you get into the habit of it, it's going to change your life. I promise you. All right, so the top 3 tips. Set up a designated workspace. Establish and communicate office hours to your team at work and your team at home, and schedule your to-dos. The next tip is to stay social. It's really, it's one of those things we don't expect because we have social media. I mean, you're with me on Instagram here, which I love having you here. Hi, Brittany. Nice to see you. And so it's really easy to say, okay, well, I have Facebook. That's enough. I have Instagram. That's enough. And that's not enough. That's not actual social time. What we miss out in an office environment is that you get to casually interact with people in your day-to-day. And so when you're at home, that socializing doesn't happen, or it happens with your spouse or your significant other and with little humans. Like, it doesn't happen the same natural camaraderie that you get when you're in the office. And as someone who works from home full time, I can tell you it gets isolating really quickly, even when you do have people around you. So I would encourage you to start using video tools to stay social. And this comes in a few different forms. So the first is do virtual lunches and coffee breaks. It sounds really silly, but if you and a coworker do lunch at the same time, or you typically have lunch together, set up a video call. I mean, Google Hangouts is free. FaceTime is free. Zoom has a free version. Just sign up for an account. Say, hey, this sounds super weird, but I just want to have lunch with you. And then you can stay social across the way. I do this a lot with other people who own businesses, and then that way we can do a casual lunch with each other, but I get to connect with people who are in Oregon or Baltimore or what have you, and we get to stay connected, and it's social time, it's not charge time, keeps you connected, and it's awesome, and it's a perfect opportunity for you to kind of vent out whatever you're feeling and any frustration. So it's awesome time. The other thing is, if you have calls scheduled, where appropriate, don't go crazy, but where appropriate, convert those to video calls. We really underestimate how much we enjoy seeing other people until you're in isolation, and talking on the phone simply won't cut it. So convert any calls that you have this week and next week, or however long your office has decided not to be in the office, or if you are taking this on full time, try to push for video calls. It gets really uncomfortable at first, but then when you get used to seeing people all the time, it really helps. Does that help? I hope so. Okay. Yay, Amy, I'm glad you love that idea. It really is a game changer to think of social time differently. The other way I want to encourage you to stay social is when we see people every day, we forget how much social interaction we get with them. So like when you walk into the office and you say to people, how are you doing today? Hey, how's it going? Hey, did you see that movie? Have you watched that Netflix special? So when you're writing emails, and this is really, really uncomfortable for a lot of us because emails are super quick, right? Somebody asks you a question and you're like, yes, no, maybe, depends. Let me give you the 15-page legalese about why. Remember to ask how people are and actually respond when people ask you, how are the kids? How are you guys doing? My cousin Aubrey just logged on. I would probably send her an email and say, hey, how are the boys holding up? She's got an 8-year-old. He's probably losing his mind. So get social with people in that way too. When people ask how you're doing, actually answer the question. They may not mean it, but it does a lot for your self-morale to feel like you're communicating with people on a deeper level. And the last one is, if you aren't already using some version of chat, start using it. Again, things like Google Chat are free, Facebook Messenger's free. In fact, I just mentioned my cousin. She's actually the one that's kept me sane through self-employment because we talk on Facebook Messenger all day long. And we usually talk about work, but it's nice to have somebody to communicate regularly. Start using the digital tools that we have, not just to be productive, like be social with people. All right, so our tips are set up a designated workspace, establish and communicate your hours with others, schedule your to-dos, stay social. And my fifth big tip for people, and it was something I missed when I went to working from home full time, and it totally caught me by surprise, is create a transition between home and work. And this is really uncomfortable because a lot of us don't stop working when we work from home, whether it's just the nature of your business or it's the nature of what your boss expects from you, or you just haven't quite figured out how to set up that boundary. The constant hustle isn't going to work. So if you have a physical environment where you can close the door or you can shut down your office space, actually set a shutdown time. I have an office, and when I leave at the end of the day, I actually close the door. I don't consider it part of my home. And so I close the door and I walk away from my space. The second thing I do is I immediately take my dog out for a walk or I go work out, because I need to have something that separates me from work mode to mom mode. And what you're missing by working from home is the commute that allows you to do that transition. So if there's something that you do on your commute, try to implement it at home. And that sounds really strange. Like don't try to reinvite road rage into your life while you're working from home. But if you listen to podcasts, maybe go for a walk and listen to podcasts, or work out and listen to podcasts. Or if you used to working out and jamming out to music, set up some music, have a dance party. Maybe that's when you turn up some music super loud and do a bunch of chores around the house, or turn up the music really loud and go cook dinner. Go do something purposeful during that time that allows you to transition, but still mirrors what you would have been doing on your commute anyways. This is also an excellent time to read a book. I actually used to call it my happy hour, where there was an hour that I set up between work and home, and I would get a glass of wine and I would grab a book and I would go sit on my patio. And it allowed me to shut down from work and get ready for the kids to come home from school. And again, I understand that a lot of you have kids home with you full time. So maybe find a way to incorporate this with the kids. Maybe this is your quiet hour. Maybe this is the time where everybody reads for 30 minutes, for an hour, whatever it may be. Give everybody some sense of purpose so that you guys can shut down and transition as a family. All right, so those are my 5 tips, and I have a bonus tip for families. My husband and I just did this over the weekend, and it really helped our sanity during this time. Our boys aren't home from school full-time yet. Our facility that the kids go to is hyper vigilant about hygiene and all of that sort of stuff. So they're still open, but we are mentally preparing to have them home. And one of the things we did, our boys are super young. So if your kids are older, incorporate them into this process, is have a family brainstorming session. So make it fun, get out papers, markers, crayons. I have those giant Post-it sheets and a bunch of Post-its and markers, and that's what we did. And think of things that you can do as a group and as a family, and then things that you can do as individuals. So if you have a young kid, I'm going to pick on my cousin again. She has an 8-year-old, and there are things that only he would want to do. What are his activities? And make a list and have him participate. So there's the buy-in. And then when it comes time where you have a meeting and you cannot be disturbed, you say, hey, mom's got a call for the next hour. If you are bored and you want something to do something on your individual list. And then when it gets to the evening, you as a family pick like a group activity to do, or sometime during the day, pick a group activity to do. So my husband and I put together all these projects. We've already put together a craft bin for my little one. He's 18 months, but he loves to get dirty and messy. So we grabbed all the paints that he can play with, all of the markers, things that we generally have around the house. We put them in one place. That way, if we need to distract him quickly or entertain him quickly, it's all in one place and ready to go. And you've already done the thought first. It really takes the stress off of being like, oh gosh, how do we entertain the kids today? What can we do? What can we do as a family? Make it a fun activity to come up with all of those ideas and have that in your back pocket. I know this feels very Pinteresty and you don't have time, you don't have the brain space, but trust me, it will save you if you just do the thought process and do the activity now. Awesome. So that's all I had for you guys. I hope that you found something valuable in here. If anybody has any questions, please let me know right now. I'm going to give a few moments for anybody to ask any questions or additional suggestions. If there's a Netflix show that you're binging that you feel like everybody should binge, that's the other thing, man. You're at home. Put something on in the background that you really love. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've put, we're a big Disney family. So I had Disney Plus on in the background, and I've watched like the princess movies 1,800 times just in the background, like just running. Like, I don't need to watch them. They're just there. Elizabeth has a question. How do you handle things when you've scheduled time in, but you don't complete a project within that time and it's got a deadline? It's a great question. I love this. So the first things first is one of the keys to project management is making sure that you're always working with the expectation that you're going to get distractions or you're going to get derailed. So if you have a deadline on, say, Friday, don't start the project on Thursday. As much lead time as you can give yourself, as feasible as that can be, give yourself more lead time as possible. Now, if you've worked on something and say you thought it was going to take an hour and a half and it's going to take 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, I would say if you're within the delta of an hour, find that hour somewhere. And that means if you have to give yourself the grace of an hour after the kids go down to bed, or you need to renegotiate your time somewhere else, renegotiate that time, because you always have to meet the deadline. Now, if you're off by a few hours, like if you've dug into a project and it is horrifyingly more time intensive than you thought it was going to be honest, own up to it, be accountable to it, and talk to the person who the deadline is due to and say, hey, I'm just going to own up to this. I way underestimated this project. Here's why. Here are the components that make it a little bit more difficult. May I have more time? And if they say no, then you know you need to go back to your calendar and find a bunch more time. But most people are gracious and they're going to help you find time. But it is important that I also build in buffer time every day. So when I say schedule your to-dos, don't go back to back, right? So every phone call that I have has prep time and it has debrief time. Every meeting that I have that is going to take some prep time that I actually need to present something, I actually designate the 45 minutes beforehand to make sure I have all of my ducks in a row. So also built into my day, I also have an additional just like 30 minutes. I actually call it my oh shit time. It's on my calendar. It just says oh shit time. And that's for anything that randomly comes up during my day and, oh shit, I didn't have time for this today. I do. That's the oh shit time. And so when somebody sends me a request and I'm like, I can do that at 3:30 today. You'll have it by end of day. So you can also use that oh shit time, that buffer time, use your lunchtime creatively, but don't make it a habit. So as you're scheduling your to-dos, you're going to figure out what tasks take more time, less time, etc. And you're going to get better at expectations. A great example of this is when I first started using this system, I did a lot of expense reports for people. And because I was always chasing my tail on expense reports, I was like, gosh, these take me like 2 hours every single time I do them. But then when I started scheduling that I just do expense reports every Monday, I reduced that amount of time to only needing an hour every Monday to do them. And I got super quick at it. And I was really good at expecting that I just needed an hour for that time. And by the time I was done and left that job, I could do it in under 45 minutes because I was, one, doing it on a regular cycle. So I stayed on top of my work. And two, I knew exactly how much time I needed for all the tasks that I needed to get the expense reports done. So Elizabeth, long answer to your question. I hope that answered it for you. Are there any other questions? And sit here awkwardly and stare at you. So, okay, if there are no other questions, I encourage you to stay in touch with me. Please continue to follow me on Instagram if you're new here. I also have a newsletter and a mailing list. I promise I don't spam you. I swear to you. But if you go to my website, jenlawrence.co, you can go ahead and sign up there. And as always, please feel free to DM me with your questions, comment on things with your questions, send me an email and I'll answer your questions. And if anybody is looking for additional coaching in the areas of productivity, please reach out to me. It is actually what I do, and I work with individuals and I work with teams. So if you're interested, send me a DM and we'll get in touch. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to talking to you guys all next time.